Hello everyone, and welcome to Sips and Stories. My name is Elizabeth, and in today's video I am going to do my very first book haul for this channel, but it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to be a library book haul. So we should know something about each other right from the beginning, and that's that I love the library. I fully support the library. I think it's the best part of every town, every community that I've ever lived in. And it's made me sad that they have been closed. And my town is finally doing the curbside pickup thing, and I am really enjoying it. And it's been such a joy to get my hands on actual physical library books again. So a lot of these books are really amazing, and I wanted to share them with you today. So go ahead and grab your favorite beverage and join me as we discuss these terrific reads. The first book that I have to share with you all is appropriately enough titled The Library Book by Susan Orlean. And this book, I have seen it everywhere lately. Probably within the last few months, it's just jumped to my attention. And I think it's really popular because Reese Witherspoon picked it for one of her book club picks. And so thank you, Reese, because I never would have known about this book otherwise. And it sounds amazing. At first, I wasn't sure if it was nonfiction or fiction. I thought it was fiction at first, but it's actually a true crime novel. It is about this fire at the Los Angeles Public Library back in the 80s, and it's about this person that started the fire and why they started the fire. It's about all the books that were lost forever. And then the author just goes into talk about libraries in general throughout the country, and I think maybe throughout the world. And it's just an ode to libraries, librarians, and a love of books. So I'm really excited about this and really looking forward to it. It gets a lot of positive reviews. I don't think I've heard anyone say anything negative about this book. I also encourage you to get your hands on a physical copy of this book, especially a hardback edition, because I just love it. It looks like an old library book. It really does. It has like that kind of textured cover, deckled edges, and this is so clever. The actual text begins on the front cover, on the cardboard cover. So I think this one's going to be a real joy. The next book that I picked up is, I have to be honest with you, I already polished this one off. It was amazing. I loved it. And that was The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. I was so excited when this book came in because, to be honest, I put it on hold and I really didn't think I was going to get it for several months because it's a brand new book. It's a debut book, debut author, and it's about a very popular topic for readers, Jane Austen, right? But it came in with all of my other holds and I was so excited. So I knew I had to read it right away because I'm sure someone else is going to put a hold on this guy. And for good reason, because it was fantastic. I highly recommend it if you love Jane Austen and if you're just a huge Jane Austen fan, because all the characters gush about Jane Austen throughout the book. And I also recommend it if you like historical fiction. So I first thought it was just set in the modern world, but it's actually set in the 1940s, right after World War II. And it's about this English village where Jane Austen lived in her final days, called Chartwell, I believe. And so it's just about these people in the village that are just a bunch of misfits that have fallen on some hard times because of the war. And they all just kind of band together to form this society for the preservation of Jane Austen's house and some of her personal belongings and books and things like that. So some of the characters include a farmer, a doctor, a teacher. There is one character I really, really love. She is a chambermaid basically, but she's only 16 and she had to leave school early. And so she basically decides to catalog all of these books in this big, huge house. And yeah, and there's also a movie star. So the movie star is really interesting as well. And she kind of just gets the ball rolling because she has money and resources. And she's a huge Jane Austen fan. So I loved it. I highly recommend it if you like Jane Austen. Also, you learn a couple things about Jane Austen that I never knew. So, especially about persuasion and why she wrote Persuasion. So I'm just gonna leave that as a little tidbit for you. Alrighty, the next book that I have is probably more on a serious note, and that is Your Heart is a Muscle the Size of a Fist by Samil Yapa, and I'm sorry about the mispronunciation. First of all, can we just talk about that title? That's a beautiful title. Your heart is a muscle the size of a fist. But I have been looking lately for books that are reflecting what's happening in the world right now with all this social and civil unrest. And I was looking for a book that kind of told the story from multiple perspectives, not just one side or the other, but from many perspectives. And this book kind of came up to my attention, and it sounded really good. It's basically about the World Trade Organization riots in Seattle during the 90s. And so apparently Seattle was no stranger to civil unrest. And basically what happened was the World Trade Organization was having this big powwow, this big conference in Seattle. And so all of these people came out to protest against it, against the environment and globalization and capitalism and things like that. So this book is told through multiple perspectives. It's told from the perspectives of police officers, from protesters, from politicians and humanitarians, and just average people in the community. So that alone just sounded really interesting and obviously intriguing for how it relates to today's world. But the heart of the story is really about a father and son. And the father is actually the police chief of Seattle, so once again, very appropriate. And the son is kind of estranged from the father. He's a protester, one of the protesters. But they have this estranged relationship because the mother has just died. So obviously the son blames the father blames himself, vice versa. And so the father, throughout the book, is trying to establish this relationship with his son once again. So everyone that has reviewed this book says the father is the best character, so I'm really looking forward to that. And a lot of people say that this book will give you faith in humanity, which is something I think that we all need right now. So I am very excited about this book, and I kind of have mixed feelings. I mean, part of me wants to read this right away, and part of me just maybe isn't ready for it because I don't want to be in that headspace right now, but I think it's going to be good, and I'm definitely going to give it a shot in the next couple of weeks. The next book I have is back to historical fiction a little bit, and that is A Well-Behaved Woman by Therese Ann Fowler. And this book is about the Vanderbilts, specifically the matriarch of the Vanderbilt family, Alva Vanderbilt, who is the wife of William Vanderbilt. So this book is set in the early 1900s, the late 1800s, early 1900s, when New York was being built and all of these like wealthy industrialists were establishing a foothold in New York. So the Vanderbilts today, we think they're just this huge, very important family. But at the time, they were considered nouveau riche. So Alva, she kind of has to claw her way up in society. And she's supposed to be anything but a well-behaved woman. So she is just trying to establish a foothold in New York society, in, you know, the world-class society, by throwing money at things. So she's probably going to be like, okay, you're not going to let me in that club. I'll just make my own club. Or I'm going to support the arts, and I'm going to build this museum, and I'm going to start this debutante ball, and things like that. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, I don't really know the history of the Vanderbilts all that much, other than Anderson Cooper and Gloria Vanderbilt and the Vanderbilt Castle, which is really amazing. And I mean, something to do with the Titanic, but I always forget that story. So just learning the history of the Vanderbilts is going to be really interesting. And I know that there was a lot of tragedy in the family as well, and that Alva had to endure a lot of personal hardships as well. So I think this is going to be a great book. I think the reviews have been mostly positive, so I'm really looking forward to it. Okay, well, this next one, I have to be perfectly honest with you. Out of all these books that I'm mentioning in this video, this is the one that I immediately want to read right now, right away. And that is Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. So I've only read one book by Anthony Horowitz, and it was, is it Alex Rider, or, oh, it's some sort of book about a teenage detective. But anyways, I trust his writing style, and I really just like Anthony Horowitz. He's an interesting author, an interesting public figure. And this book is about, it's supposed to be an homage to classic mysteries and classic crime writers like Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers. And I love Agatha Christie, and I love the character of Hercule Poirot in particular. And so what it's about is this author named Alan Conway, and he writes a series of detective novels, and his Hercule Poirot character is called Atticus Pund, and so he writes all of these mysteries about Atticus Pund, this famous British detective. So he gives his new manuscript to his editor, Susan, and I think Susan is actually the main character in the book, and Susan starts to read through the manuscript. She thinks it's going to be a typical Atticus Pund novel, you know, what she's used to editing. And as she starts to read, she figures out that there's a mystery within the mystery, and something within the manuscript is relating to real life, and she has to put a stop to it or figure out the mystery before someone gets hurt. So that just sounds terrific to me. I think it's just a good combination of classic cozy mystery with thriller. So I am really, really excited about this one and looking forward to it. And I kind of have to contain myself because honestly, I just want to start reading this right now. Yeah, I'm super excited about this one. The next one I have is The Wright Brothers by David McCullough. And I thought I'd switch gears again a little bit and go back to nonfiction. I always try to read a little nonfiction. I think for every like 5, 6, 7 books I read, I try to throw in a nonfiction to kind of mix things up. And I think David McCullough is a great place to start if you're looking for a good biography. I have so far read 1776 and John Adams by David McCullough, and both of those books are fantastic. In particular, John Adams. So don't just watch the HBO miniseries John Adams. I had kind of mixed opinions about that miniseries, but the book was amazing, and John Adams will become your favorite founding father. And what I like about David McCullough's writing is he tells these stories in a very narrative voice. They're not boring, they're not dry. He's basically just a good storyteller. And anytime he can let the characters speak for themselves and use journals and excerpts from letters and things of that nature, he will. So I'm really excited about the Wright Brothers because I've heard a lot of great things about this book. I'm really interested in the history of flight in general. It's one of my life's ambitions to get my pilot's license, and so the Wright Brothers just fascinate me, and even just that first test flight in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, ooh, it's going to be so interesting. Also, I'm excited about this book because I know that they had this sister. So Orville and Wilbur had this sister. She was lesser known, but she was basically the matriarch of the family, and she was a really interesting character in and of herself. So I believe that the family, their mother died when they were young, and they were raised by their father. And the father was a minister, and he traveled all over the country. And so a lot of the times they were raised basically by their sister. And she just sounds like a really interesting character, and I'm excited to learn more about the sister and just more about their bicycle shop. I also remember that they had a printing press, I believe, so learning more about the printing press. And yeah, basically how do they go from printing press, bicycle shop to airplanes? So I'm looking forward to this, and I think it's going to be a terrific read. If I know David McCullough, it's going to be a fun story. And last but not least, I picked up from the library a couple of middle grade books, and I have to just say right off the bat that I've been reading a ton of middle grade recently. I think the pandemic started in March during middle grade March, and I've basically been continuing middle grade March for the past 5 months because I love middle grade books in general, but there's something about them right now that I'm finding really comforting. I think because it's good storytelling, but it's not too heavy. So it features some heavy topics. A lot of children's books feature heavy topics, but they're not too difficult to get through, and the characters are usually very inspiring, and a lot of them are coming of age novels. So what can I say? I just love middle grade, and I love treating myself to a few middle grades every month. So I have here Look Both Ways by Jason Reynolds, which I'm really excited about, and The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. So I'll start with this one, The House with Chicken Legs. I first heard about this, like many of you, on Gavin's channel, and I just have to say right off the bat, I love Gavin. I really trust his opinion. I love how he really hones in on middle grade novels, and he specializes in middle grade. And whenever he has a new video of recommendations, I'm always checking it out because he has terrific taste. And he really raved about this book, and to be honest, I don't really know what it's about. I was just intrigued by the title, basically, and the front cover. The House with Chicken Legs. That's adorable. This just sounds adorable. And when I got the book from the library, the end papers, they're so terrific because there's some texture to them. They're very bumpety, like chicken skin. So clever. I really don't know what it's about. It is about a 12-year-old girl named Marika who wants a friend, a real friend, not like her house with chicken legs. Sure, the house can play games like tag and hide and seek, but Marika longs for a human companion, someone she can talk to and share secrets with. But that's tough when your grandmother is a yaga, a guardian who guides the dead into the afterlife. It's even harder when you live in a house that wanders all over the world. So, what? The dead? The afterlife? Whoa, I don't know. This book could be amazing or it could be a dud. I'm not sure. But I trust Gavin's opinion and I'm really looking forward to it. The last book that I have to share with you all is one I'm excited about, and that is Look Both Ways by Jason Reynolds. So first of all, I should say I've never read a Jason Reynolds, and I don't know why, because I personally love Jason Reynolds. I've watched a lot of videos with him talking about children's literacy and bringing more diverse books to students so that they can relate to some of the characters in books. So I really just enjoy Jason Reynolds as a public figure, as a speaker, as an author. But I thought it was time that I read one of his books. And this one just sounded the most interesting to me. It's basically a collection of short stories about kids on the way to school and on the way home from school. So when Jason Reynolds was talking about it, he was saying that the only time that kids have any autonomy, any time to be themselves or just, view the world from their own perspective is when they're away from teachers and away from parents. And usually the only time that they're away from teachers and parents is on the way to and from school. So I think this book is mostly about inner city kids that are walking to school probably. I don't think it's about suburban kids, but I could be wrong. But anyways, it's a collection of short stories about, I'm sure, bullying. I'm sure there's some stories about friendship, about racism. And then I think Jason Reynolds mentioned that there was a story about a little boy whose mother was very sick. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be great. And I just wanted to share with you the opening chapter because I thought it was terrific. So, oh gosh. The first story is called Marston Street, and it starts off with water, booger, bears. This story was going to begin like all the best stories, with a school bus falling from the sky. But no one saw it happen, no one heard anything. So instead, this story will begin like all the good ones, with boogers. So there you go. There's just an example of Jason Reynolds' sense of humor and writing style. And like I said, this is probably way too young for me, but I want to read it nevertheless. So there you have it, everyone. Thank you for joining me for my very first video, my very first book haul. And please, please support your local libraries as well. I think this year more than ever, we're all realizing just how important they are. So yes, I love new pretty books too, and I have plenty of those to share with you in upcoming videos, but the library is in my soul. It's my favorite place of ever. So thank you for joining me, everyone, and have a terrific day.